Hello everybody, thanks so much for coming. For those who don't know me, my name's Damon Lafford. I'm head of agency sales here at Channel 4. Welcome to Horseferry Road. I'm sure, just chatting to some of you, it's the first time for a lot of people to come over here. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to host you, and I really hope that you find the environment inspiring. The building was built by Richard Rogers. It was completed in 1994. You're sitting on the site of an old disused post office. An interesting fact that you can take home to your loved ones: the primary steelwork outside of Channel 4, that kind of orangey steelwork, is painted exactly the same colour as the Golden Gate Bridge. The fore outside is 50 feet tall, and we frequently hand it over to local and national artists to give their interpretation of what the fore should be. We give them a brief, obviously. So a fantastic one a couple of years ago was for the Paralympics. It was made into basically a Paralympian athlete. It looked absolutely fantastic. Well, a lot of Channel 4 staff's most favourite one is the umbrellas, which was used in a lot of our idents. At the moment, it's painted in rainbow colours to show our solidarity with the gay and lesbian athletes at Sochi. The lifts here have reached iconic status. We had them installed, obviously, right at the start. Early idents on screen made a lot of play of the lifts and the outside look of Channel 4. But I urge you not to use them. They look beautiful, but they're actually built for being inside, and they're outside, so they break down absolutely all the time. Some housekeeping. There are loos just at the top of the stairs that you came in at, and you don't need a pass to get into those, so it should be relatively straightforward. I'm going to come back and talk in probably about 2 minutes, but I'll hand over to Pete to give you an overview of the day. So thank you very much.
Morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Pete. I'm one of the founders of Agenda 21. So welcome to our first breakfast session of 2015. One of the things we try to do when we discuss the topics of these events is, I guess it's to look at things from not so much a day-to-day point of view, but more from a step back and reassess some of the stuff that we certainly have to do within Agenda 21. And originally we came up with the gloriously unsexy title of video, but me and Andy thought that wasn't quite embracing enough of what the world is, what the things that are changing today. So we came up with what are you watching? And to put it into context, and certainly for some of you that work at my place, the first thing I'm about to say you'll probably think, you what? Is when I was a kid, which was a fair amount of time ago, there was 3 TV channels. You didn't get to choose what you watched, they chose for you. And one of those, BBC Two, took a bit of a break in the afternoon where you couldn't watch anything. Now, if you compare that to where we are today, things are quite different. I was also thinking about, from the point of view of digital or online, is back in 1994, I sat in front of a PC for 20 minutes waiting for an image to download, which was the first animated GIF that I saw, which was in fact Jesse Owens just running like that for Adidas. And at the time I thought, wow, that's just been streamed. But it was from a 9.6k modem, which again, for some of you think, what am I talking about? But that was 1994, jumped to 2014, back end of last year. On Blinkbox, I bought, because I'm a bit sad, the full series of Game of Thrones in HD. And I watched it across my desktop, my phone, I watched it on my tablet, and I streamed it from my tablet to my TV via Chromecast. Watched whenever I wanted. That's quite a different world, back to BBC Two taking a break in the afternoon. So we thought, how do we encompass where the world is, and particularly for an agency like ours, and for advertisers like some of you guys in the room? And I think what we wanted to do was to have the 3 companies shown there to give a view of where their worlds are from the place that they are. So certainly a business like Channel 4, and I guess to my mind they're probably the most forward-thinking broadcaster that understands how the world has changed and will continue to change. We've then got Zad from Atomised. I was fortunate enough to do some work with Zad a couple of years ago. I think explain about where they sit and how their world is changing, but from a content creation point of view, I think it opened my eyes, and probably hears about what you can do in terms of how you can make stuff and how you can distribute it. And then we'll have Simon from Electric Glue to talk more about the consequences of how you might think about planning and buying that media, which of course is relevant to most of you in the room. So I'm going to shut up. I've got Damon and Dan to start first from here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pete. Right, so yes, Dan and I are just going to give you a bit of an overview of how Channel 4 thinks, what we're doing particularly in the ad space and how we're working with advertisers. So some of you in this room will remember when we first started broadcasting in 1982. The first programme on the channel was Countdown. So I don't know if anyone, hands up, who knows the first person who appeared on Channel 4? It was Richard Whiteley, God bless him. And also on the first night of Channel 4 we also showed Brookside, which then ran for 21 years and for many years was one of our most iconic shows. So Channel 4 is a public service broadcaster. We have no shareholders, and that means we were born to take risks. And after costs and overhead, the revenue that we make from advertising all goes on to making content. We have to live by this remit to demonstrate innovation, experiment and creativity in the form and content of programmes, to appeal to the tastes and interests of a culturally diverse society, to include programmes of an educational nature, and to exhibit distinctive character. Now, while always providing these, Channel 4 has evolved through the years. We fueled the American football obsession in the 80s. We owned Friday nights with the hugely successful acquisitions from the States like Friends, and obviously the cultural seismic shift from the launch of Big Brother in the early noughties, and now the phenomenon that is Gogglebox, which started again last Friday and had an absolute record. It was about 4.9 million, which is absolutely phenomenal for us on a Friday night. Also on the sales side, we've evolved. The launch and success of E4, More4 and Film4. So Channel 4 sales now provided a wider audience for advertisers just with the launch of those. For many years, the only way you could Channel 4 only had one channel to sell. So a very easy life for Channel 4 ad sales staff all those years ago. But since 2010, this has grown. We won the contract for UK TV in 2010 and PBS shortly afterwards. But one of the biggest game changers we've had was a couple of years ago when we won the rights to sell BT Sport. And obviously with their now taking over the Champions League, their successful Premier League auction of last week, then they're a real force to be reckoned with. And obviously got enormously deep pockets. So what we'd like to talk to you today is about how TV has evolved, how we view it, and as an organisation, how Channel 4 and other broadcasters are working to ensure that our viewers can watch content when and how they want it. Also ensuring that our advertisers have highly effective ways of utilising the new platforms and creating some really genuine cut-through. So first things first, despite what you may hear, linear TV is actually in rude health. As you can see from this very exciting slide, viewing minutes for all individuals, so starting in 2004 on the left and 2014 on the right, it fluctuates on an annual basis. But I've just sort of done a crosshatch across from 2004. It's pretty static as it goes up and down, but with very, very similar levels to what it was in 2004. It has proved incredibly resilient. If you think across the last 10 years, the amount of competition that is out there for all those linear TV eyeballs, and the vast majority of viewers still actually prefer to view live. In the UK, 88% of all viewing is live, and 94% of viewing is live or viewed on the same day as live. So that's basically watching an hour later or recording it to watch 2 hours later that night. So, Broadchurch last night was a very good example. Decent live audience. Some people watched it on the +1. Some people then recorded it and watched it 2 hours later, and that would all add into that 94% as live. So not just Channel 4 stats, a recent BBC study asked a sample of 2,600 adults to monitor their TV viewing across 48 hours and track how they arrive at each individual programme choice. So this provided us with information on tens of thousands of programme selections. So the most remarkable thing was that the viewers actually knew what they wanted to watch, i.e. they made an appointment to view on 82% of occasions. Now, so we're out in the field talking to clients a lot, and the anecdotal feedback we get from them is they put an enormous amount of store in these appointment to view programmes as a really important environment for their commercial messages. Indian Summers, 2 Sundays ago, there's a number of advertisers used that as a launch spot, and the largest, I'd say, arguably the biggest ad campaign of the end of last year was John Lewis, and they used Gogglebox as their big kick-off spot for that Penguin ad campaign. So, however, despite overall viewing staying fairly level, there is no doubt that younger viewers are viewing differently. Here is a very similar slide. This is their viewing patterns over the last 10 years. It is fairly stable, but if you look, there is a notable dip in this audience in the last year. So Channel 4 and other broadcasters, we're committed to providing alternative means of receiving our content, and with 4OD we provide the most innovative service in this space. I'd say the vast majority of our output is actually available to all, and the only requirement that we have for people to view our output is that they particularly our archive, is that they register with us, and that then gets them through the wall, and they can pretty much get everything that has ever been on Channel 4. So by creating 4OD, we made sure that we're not just providing viewers with the access they want, but we're also providing advertisers with a route to hit particularly hard to reach demographics. So to demonstrate how certain programmes are viewed, this is a bit, just to walk you through this. So this is an episode of Made in Chelsea, so this is Series 8, Episode 8. If you look on the left-hand side, only 17% of all viewing to that episode was live. 45% of it was on recorded and on TV VOD, and 21% was 4OD. So if you think about the stat earlier, that 88% of viewing in this country is live, then something like Made in Chelsea, which is predominantly a kind of 1634, even 1624 audience, view it in a completely different way. So Channel 4 has to be absolutely at the forefront of this, because the vast majority of audiences and that our advertisers are interested in when they talk to Channel 4 is 1634 adults and ABC1 adults. So we need to be absolutely on top of how we can hit that. So that's why we find 4OD absolutely vital to service advertisers' needs. So we now have, because of this requirement that we have to register, because the access to our archive content is such a compelling case for our viewers, we now have 11.5 million registered users. So as I mentioned, the quid pro quo, getting access to the archive, means that we get hold of their data. And we use this data to allow us to create, now bear with me on this slide, vast interconnecting algorithms that tell us who is watching what programme. So if we can tell if fans of programme A are fans of programme B, and if there's any particular overlap. So I'll give you a live example. So a programme like Educating Yorkshire, fans of Educating Yorkshire have a number of affinities with shows like 999 What's Your Emergency, Secret Life of the Classroom and Fried Chicken Shop. But we found that they have very little affinity, and they don't really like watching Made in Chelsea and Fresh Meat. We know this because we know exactly who's watching. This is all 4OD data, and then we can look and compare. So that's on 4OD, but we can compare. We can then use those learnings. The commissioners of linear TV can then use those. So we would very happily schedule Educating Yorkshire up against Fresh Meat. So obviously one's on Channel 4, the other one's on E4. We won't actually demonstrate any kind of dip in audience because we know those Venn diagrams don't even touch. But we would never put Educating Yorkshire out on Channel 4 against Fried Chicken Shop on 4/7, for example, because the audiences are very similar. Viewing to 4OD has grown considerably since launch in 2007, and this slide indicates key carriage launches and the growth and decline by platform. So in blue, you've got PC usage for 4OD, so it's at the bottom. So you can see that obviously that went absolutely gangbusters in a peak of in about November 2010 and has been in decline ever since. Smart TVs are in yellow, so it's been steadily growing, and mobiles and tablets are in purple, so they're going through a real growth spurt at the moment. Deals with PlayStation, Apple TV, Xbox and Netflix have all driven that growth. So despite the rude health of linear TV, 4OD is hugely important to our viewers and our advertisers, and the vast majority of our advertisers use both 4OD and linear TV for their network campaigns. As I mentioned, it's especially important for young advertisers. They've been viewing fewer linear minutes. For the second half of our session, Dan and I would like to show you some work that we've done with advertisers when they want to access our audience in a way that really cuts through and uses a combination of our platforms and creative thinking. So these are kind of bespoke campaigns that we work on, that all the ideas actually come all from this building, and then are picked up by some really big blue chip advertisers. A very simple example of how we augmented an existing campaign was with Diet Coke. So I'm sure you'll be aware of the huge international campaign which was Share a Coke. So this lived obviously on posters and outdoor, on TV. But because we are absolutely unique in having a database, we know exactly who's watching, we know who's watching each show, but we also know who's watching each ad. Anyone who was a registered user and was logged in would be served a personalised ad. And obviously that resonates hugely, and that was also going to be the first ad that they would see when they went into 4OD. It was obviously Coke could massively PR this. This is up for a number of awards this year, but it was just a really nice thing. But all we need to do is not have to put in "Why is my name in lights," and people could click on that, and then they get an understanding of why they were being served. I mean, we have to be very careful with this. We really pick and choose the advertisers that we would do this kind of thing with, because it can sort of cross the line from being really cool to being actually quite creepy. So the second one we did was with Burberry. So this is, again, really lovely, wonderful brand. Burberry were offering the opportunity with this fragrance to have your initials etched or engraved in there. So clearly we know who's watching 4OD at any time, so you'd be served with, say, me as Damon Lafford, I'd be served with DL, a monogrammed bottle. But the beauty of this one, Coke was just a lovely branding campaign, and it more augmented a larger campaign. With Burberry, you could then click on this and actually buy that bottle. And the marketing director of Burberry is absolutely over the moon at this, because the sales for that type of bottle went up by 58%. So it's hugely successful. So with Coke and Burberry, we had a great idea, but the key was that it was beautifully executed. As I say, we don't want it to be an imposition on the viewer. We wanted it to be cool but not creepy. So I'm now going to hand over to Dan, who's going to give you some more examples of how we've worked with advertisers.
I'd like to kick off with an initiative we did with PlayStation 4 for the launch of the new console about a year and a half ago. It was hugely anticipated, and we worked really closely with the agency and Full Creative to try and work in seamlessly both brands together, because obviously it's a very young, very connected audience who really need quite unique and bespoke content delivered to them. So to start with, we worked with game developers to create 2 bespoke interstitials. Now you'll see these on Channel 4. It's the moving hay bales, it's the tower blocks morphing into the Channel 4 logo. We started to merge this in with our creative work to produce stuff that really blended in both games that the players loved and were coming back onto new versions on the new console, and they looked really, really good. Here's an example of Drive Club. We then created a competition mechanic for viewers to enter a sequence of PlayStation codes and enter into a chance to win some consoles. And we set up an app for this, which allowed you to enter from Twitter and for the chance to win. And we told the viewers what to do in the first break, and then delivered some creative like this. Very simple, very on brand, and again us using different media to engage with our audience, and certainly very relevant to a younger audience such as the PS4 one. The finale of the competition was a sequence of ads in every break of Homeland, and this one we switched around, so we did we showed the code first and then the call to action second. I'll just show you the examples of those there. Now, obviously, the complexity of the code there is much more. It's much harder than the original sort of 6-digit one. So here we're utilising the functionality of PVR boxes to tell people to rewind and pause. So we're using kind of the functionality of the box, plus the content, plus the engagement of the competition.
You missed the code. Channel 4 and PlayStation have been giving away 20 brand new PS4s over the course of the weekend. Sign into Twitter at channel4.com/PS4 now. Then rewind to the last ad break and find the PlayStation symbol sequence and enter it for your last chance to win. This is for the players.
And then to sum it all off, to launch their brand new creative in the final break of Homeland, we made a bespoke introduction piece, morphing both the PS4 logo and the Channel 4 logo together, just to round off the association.
Now, Channel 4 and PlayStation brings you a television advertising premiere, exploring 18 years of gaming evolution. PS4, this is for the players.
I think it just proves for the right commercial partner, in the right context, we can work with our physical assets to really deliver some really hugely engaging and relevant commercial messages. Next up, I'll show my 5 minutes. It's something we did with X-Men and the launch of the film Days of Future Past. which was them going back in time and interacting with their earlier selves. And so what we did, we worked with our talent and talent from the film, and we asked them what they would do if they went back in time, what they would say to themselves. And this is very much a sort of documentary style, talking heads piece, and something that Channel 4 does really well.
If I went back in time, I would tell my younger self...
You've got to kill the Terminator's mum.
No, you cannot get into shape for Wolverine in 3 weeks. It's more like 6 months.
Probably the biggest piece of advice is that boys of 24 are not interested in whether you can do a good shepherd's pie.
If I was talking to a younger me, I would say, listen boy, crack on with the cooking, all good, but whatever you do, don't say the word pucker.
To arrive at my decisions quicker.
If I could talk to my younger self, I'd advise myself not to get that tattoo.
I should have had one. Right on the bottom, fox's tail.
Just says your mum. It is about your mum, by the way.
Everyone's talking about X-Men, Days of Future Past. Join the conversation at #MyFuturePast.
And we find that we get sort of a 70% uplift in break retention when we use our talent in adverts. Obviously, it's much more compelling for our viewers. Next up, on paper, what we've done with Lloyd's is a lot simpler. It's much more straightforward. But in an era where banks are struggling for good PR, to communicate sort of some of the good stuff they do around helping people buy their first homes and set up small businesses, was a brief they came to us with, and was quite a hard one to crack. And so what we delivered was some bits of Channel 4 talent-led pieces, with them, rather than talking about Lloyd's, just eulogising about their own experiences, setting up new businesses and buying their first homes. And this is the most recent creative we did about starting new businesses.
I think the nice thing about starting your own business is that it gives you the freedom.
I've wanted a vintage clothes business for years. I became obsessed with this part of the website that tells me what's being sold. I'm like, do something.
When we first started, I had 4 pigs, 2 caravans and a shed.
Setting up a charity, it is a bit of an animal. I'm the kind of person who feels like I'm almost nearly there, but I'm never there. There's always the next thing.
The Prince of Wales has ordered 2 boxes of sausages. I was like, that is amazing. And it was only in the afternoon that I realised it was the Prince of Wales pub.
I really genuinely love having my own business.
I mean, there's nothing like it.
Lloyd's Bank, for the moments that matter.
And whilst data back from Lloyd's is not often shared, we started launching this 2 years ago, and they're still making new creative for it. So it just proves how that using talent really does interact and engage with audiences, and actually can tell a story that, you know, a brand ad potentially can't. And last year we launched our 4 Shorts platform, and we launched it as if it was a normal channel launch. And it's the home for content between 3 and 7 minutes, and it lives in the digital space. And we use it to trial new comedies, for extended programme franchises like Made in Chelsea, but also to launch ad-funded programming. Now, in the linear space, ad-funded programming can be very expensive, and it lives or dies by the audience it delivers. So if it goes out in a peak slot and doesn't deliver, it can be pulled by schedulers the following week. So it tends to go out late at night, whereas this is much more risk-averse, but also enables you to take risks in terms of the type of content you produce. And we've had some great successes with advertisers. This is one we did with Alpha and Mayo last year. And Alpha and Mayo sponsored our Passion on 4 strand. And we worked with them to create 4 pieces of content with Guy Martin around his passions. So he loves the Audi TT racing, he's a truck mechanic, he's got a Spitfire engine as a hobby, and these are all things that he really engaged with. And we made these 7-minute clips that lived on 4 Shorts. And we drove engagement to the content from the broadcast space and from pre-rolls and 4OD.
You've got white lines to deal with, you've got the furniture around the track, you know, you've got the curbs, you've got the lampposts, the walls. I don't know if the English language has got a word to do it justice, to do the TT justice. I don't know if it has.
Guy Martin's Passion for Life, an original short exclusive to 4OD.
I think here the interesting thing is actually this was a digital bit of creative, but was so successful and so engaging that we ended up merging the 4 shorts into a 30-minute show that played out in peak between Christmas and New Year, and it was the highest rating show in commercial TV that night. So it was a way to sort of test content in the digital space and actually then sort of expand it out. And I think for Alpha, obviously, it's a huge success being able to merge content and brand imagery together. But actually, with us, what we do is we have an exclusive window where it sits on 4 shorts. But after that period, it's Alpha's to own and then proliferate across other media as they see fit. And that's it. Over to you, Damon.
I'll just finish that. Just want to talk very briefly about it. It's something that we do here, just my last minute. All of those ideas emanate from Channel 4, and what we try to do is really, at the moment, try and improve the briefing process and speed the whole thing up. So we created something last year called accelerated planning sessions. It was in conjunction with how an agency such as Mediacom work, who we work quite closely alongside. And what we've had some amazing results by inviting the client into this building, inviting the media agency, the creative agency as well, and we kind of kick off the session. We've obviously got this great facility here, so we use the cinema, we use a lot of our breakout rooms as well. And it kicks off, we will start off with a bit of an inspiration piece, so some of the more recent work we've done, the pieces like Dan's just demonstrated, and stuff that's just particularly relevant to the field that client works in. So we do those to start with. Then we ask the client to give a live brief or essentially just, this is my business problem, how can we solve it? Then the clients, the media agency, the creative agency, ourselves, and we facilitate sessions, sort of 3 or 4 different breakout groups, then go away, try and crack that brief in 45 minutes, and then come back and present. And so essentially this only takes about an afternoon. We've had some amazing results working with the likes of Post Office, BT, Dulux, with really quite tricky briefs that actually come back, and those things actually within a few months turn into creative that then goes on screen. And we have a number of different creative agencies that we work with, which are great. We work really closely with Agenda 21 and Electric Glue. We've had some fantastic briefs from them. But if you're interested in doing a session like this, then speak to Electric Glue, speak to Agenda 21, and they can get in touch with us and try and facilitate it. But that's all for Dan and I. I hope this has been of interest. This is kind of a bit of a snapshot of how we operate at Channel 4, the kind of pressures that we have to work within, and the way that the changing way that people are viewing TV, and obviously 4OD. I'll now hand over to Pete. Thank you.